Tony Speaks, and this is my lovely wife, Kim. We are the founders and co creators of the lifestyle brand and podcast, Becoming Disciplined. Every week we meet, learn from, and share best practices with highly disciplined men and women from a variety of fields and endeavors. Follow us on our journey. Chad Barker has been playing guitar and singing for over 20 years. He has performed in various genres both as a solo performer and in groups. Chad's training is in classical and jazz voice, which he studied at the University of North Texas, and he has adapted and used that training as a rock performer. Chad has taught beginners and served as a vocal coach for regularly performing veterans. Many people feel that without natural talent, they cannot ever have a singing voice to be proud of. However, Chad Barker believes that in his time performing and teaching, he has seen the evidence over and over again that singing is a learned art. Someone lacking in natural talent can nonetheless make great strides with work and focus and discipline. Chad is proof of that. And today, Chad Barker is becoming disciplined. Today on Becoming Disciplined, we interview the most disciplined musician in America, Chad Barker. Chad, welcome to Becoming Disciplined. We are so honored to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I think that my face probably said it all when you introduced me like that. Um, yeah. Although I will say, even if I may not, immediately jump at the chance to have that title, I know that musicians have a sort of reputation as being maybe a little bit flighty, a little bit, just not too reliable. So at the very, very least, I want to point out I was early. That's the thing. I do appreciate timeliness and punctuality. So I of course give that whenever I
Right. Well, I'm sorry to mean to chop on you there, but now let me stress to everyone that title is a title that we give to Chad, and we know it's subjective. And Chad is always very humble. We know he won't receive that title, but we're going to give it to him anyway. But Chad, before you educate us on how you became such a disciplined musician and you share your current story, I think it's always good for my audience to be aware of your context, the beginning of your story. Every superhero has an origin story. Where did you grow up?
Mostly in Baton Rouge. I was born in Texas, but then spent my early childhood in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Stayed there till just before high school, and then high school was here in Texas, in the Dallas area, and I've been around Dallas ever since. So clearly, I kind of like it here.
Okay. Now, what was your childhood like? Did you have a traditional childhood, a non-conventional childhood? How would you describe your childhood?
I mean, I think everybody, what they experience, to them sort of becomes normal. That's what they expect from other people too. And it's not till you have more experiences that you start to see, that everybody is sort of equally odd or different or just unique and that sort of thing. So, for myself, I thought it was pretty normal, but yeah, not the traditional family sort of thing, because the reason that I grew up in Baton Rouge was my parents were divorced when I was 18 months, and so I lived with my mother 11 months out of the year, my father just the 1 month, and so single mom for the vast majority of my life, but again, that didn't seem like an issue or a problem to me. It just seemed sort of like normal.
I hear you. I hear you. Now, when you were a child, was there someone who inspired you with their level of discipline?
Oh, sure, my mother. Yeah, she was the one, getting things done, taking care of everything. And at the time, uh, I don't think either one of us realized, just how much she actually was influencing me and my outlook on things, for good and bad, because we're humans. We're none of us are perfect, and she, even though she is an incredibly hard worker, and just has that amazing work ethic. She hasn't been great with money, for instance, and so that has sort of influenced me in the opposite direction. I'm much better with money myself, and so it hopefully you can take lessons from either side of things, either good examples or bad examples. So that's what I was trying to do at least.
Sure, sure. Now, when did you fall in love with music?
Um, so in here's something that I've noticed a lot with my students, because I give a lot of lessons to younger people, and just about across the board, the girls, they start showing up at about 10 or 11 maybe. Like that's when they tend to start listening to music on their own, start really loving it on their own. And the boys show up about 13, 14, and I fall right into that. Like 13, 14, that range right there. That's exactly when it started to hit me too. And of course, at first it was just listening and loving to listen to music, but it grew from there, obviously. So I don't know why necessarily those ages. It's just something that I've observed, but it is, it's pretty universal unless there's something, or someone who really influences them to listen and love music at an earlier age. And then sometimes there are, just parents who want their kids to have lessons, and it's not as much about their child yet loving music. It's more just trying to install the discipline of practice and things like that. So there are always different reasons and approaches for people to get lessons, or take lessons with me. But sorry, that's a little extra, so go ahead.
Now, we time travel on this podcast, so we're
All
going
right.
to time travel to your and you're not going to be able to actually step into the time continuum. You're just going to be able to whisper, because if you stepped into it, you change everything. But
Mm.
if you could whisper to your 15-year-old self and give your 15-year-old Chad Barker any advice, what would you tell that 15-year-old?
15. Okay, I started actually playing music later than that. So by 15 it was, the seed was already planted. Like I don't think there was any doubt that that's the direction I was going to go. I was singing. I wasn't doing anything organized or purposeful yet. um but I might get a little bit more of a head start because yeah, right about then was kind of the genesis already. So yeah, if I could go a little earlier, then I'd definitely get started a little bit earlier. But yeah, again, I think part of the joy of it for me is the fact that it was my choice and my path, and I really did love music. So I don't think I could have changed too much, even with regardless whether it's with a whisper or a shout. So
Sure, sure. Now, can you explain to our audience your musical progression? You say you began with singing, and then later on you began to play. What instruments did you learn, and how did all of that progress?
okay, so voice is my primary, and that's the one that I started with. I started in uh, you know teenage bands, that's that sort of thing. But I quickly got into choir, like as soon as I could anyway. That only started in high school, which again was a little bit late. I mean, some of those people in high school choir had been singing since they were 6. Like in lessons since they were 6, I should say, because they were very just polished already. And of course I got a little bit of a late start. Um, but and by the way, this was not just high school, this was senior high, so just 11th and 12th grade. And so I started in 11th grade in the lower choir, because I was pretty brand new. And by senior year, I made it into the good choir, the upper choir, the a cappella choir. So clearly there was some progress made in that year. That's when I started taking lessons as well. My first voice teacher absolutely taught me a ton, and I find myself channeling Miss Chloe even today when I'm talking to people in lessons. I say some of the same things. I use some of the same phrases that she did. I even um, there was a commercial of all things, a Borden commercial where Elsie the cow is in a field out singing, and this was how Miss Chloe taught me how to do a vibrato with your voice, and so you can literally you can see her goozle. That's what my grandmother would have called it. Her goozle just flapping up and down as she's singing these moo moos, moo moo, and then there's the vibrato, and it's really just about that relaxation and that just sort of you know controlled relaxation really is what it is in the end. But I mean that's how I learned vibrato. But obviously the lessons they stuck with me. That's the point. After that, um, all of my friends at that point pretty much played guitar. We didn't need another guitarist, and yet I still learned guitar. Now, granted, that I'm self-taught on. Never took any lessons. I had a friend of mine who just gave me basically a sheet of chords, said, "Learn to switch between them," and that was the extent of my instruction. But it worked out because I definitely did. I made good use of that chord sheet, I think. Um, and then after that, I did study music in college, and that's when piano came about because they do require piano as a second instrument. They really don't look kindly on guitar as a second instrument when you're trying to do vocal as a primary. So I picked up my third, which was piano, and then I picked up a few more along the way as well. Like there are lessons where I help people record their music that they write, and usually I'm the best drummer in the room. That's not saying much, don't get me wrong, but I'm the one who ends up playing the drums or the bass or the mandolin or just whatever is kind of not the the guitar or just the main vocal or something like that. Although I'll sing backup parts as well for them in those situations. So yeah, lots. That's the that's the bottom line. And well, I think that'll probably answer it, and we'll go somewhere else. I'm sure I don't have to keep rambling on. Go right ahead.
No, no, no. You're great. You're great. Now, do you believe that people have a natural born talent towards music, or do you believe it's a craft that you just have to hammer on? Which one? Which one do you lean toward?
It's got to be both. Now, I want to be really clear though. There are people who have more talent than others, and me personally, I didn't start out with some innate ability. I really did not have anything to speak of. And so for me, it has been just all about time spent and effort put into it. And I can't say enough that no matter where your starting point is, you can absolutely make progress. It's just about knowing what to work on and knowing how to work on it. That's the bottom line there. But the people with natural talent, I mean, they're going to be a few steps ahead, and if they then also put in the work, like that's how you get the people with these crazy amazing voices. It's not like they're just naturally amazing and that's it, full stop. They still had to work hard to get, to the polish that they show now. And so I don't want people to be discouraged, just because they think they're not talented or not I've actually heard people say that they're tone deaf, and I've never ever met someone who thought they were tone deaf but actually was tone deaf. It's really all about kind of learning how to listen. So it all can be learned, and I really want people to understand that you can learn just about anything when it comes to music.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe you can help me because at one time, this is a little embarrassing. I used to want to be a rapper as a kid, and I'm actually very good with lyrics. But one thing that stopped me cold is I could not rap on beat. So
Okay.
that just kind of killed a career. So maybe I could work with you at a later time. Even though I'm 48, I'm too old
Absolutely.
to be a rapper now. But well, now there's old rappers, so you never know. Now, there are old rappers now. Now, what advice do you give to a budding musician to avoid some of the pitfalls and to get more of the thing that they love? Because and let me share with my audience why we invited Chad on. And back in the days when I was a spoken word artist, hoping to become a rap artist, a failed rap artist, uh, I would see that there were a lot of wonderful musicians who lack the discipline to handle the business side of things. And
Sure.
like matter of fact, even now when I mentor people or whatever, I had a buddy of mine who him and his hip hop group would kind of hang out in the studio and smoke bud and not ever really get to the actual recording, where
Sure.
they're hanging out and just not really focused. The reason why we invited Chad on is my daughters were trying to get some musical lessons, and we had gone through an online website, and one musician showed up, and they kind of did not could not consistently kind of give us a high quality instruction. Then another instructor showed up and kind of flaked out on us. And then Chad showed up and was like the perfect mixture of musician and almost a military man, like very focused, very square, could knew how to talk to the kids, structured lessons, structured thought process, linear teaching, all of those things. So I guess let me morph my question a little bit to you, Chad.
Mhm.
How did you marry those two things of music, but then also having a little more structure than some musicians that I've run into? And what advice do you have for young musicians who may not have that structure?
Yeah, and I think that's a personality thing first and foremost. Like I mentioned at the top, I may not fit the typical musician mold as people tend to think of it anyway. And just the way that I think about things, I do tend to, I want to organize things and sort of put them in an order. So yeah, I do think it's kind of built in. But at the same time, especially when you're starting with someone young, like your daughters, I really just want to build them a broad foundation. I don't want to go with a laser focus on one aspect. I want them to be able to make some connections and just see that music is music, and we're working on multiple instruments, and they can see when we go from voice to guitar to piano that it's all sort of following the same rules, if you will. Although rules is a harsher word than I would use actually. Uh, so that's the thing that I would probably suggest for most people is, um, and that touches on what you were talking about with the business side of things. If you are too focused on just one thing. And I know that society right now is all about, specialization, and you must be specialized to really, be able to earn your place in the world essentially. But start out with a broader idea. I mean, you can always specialize when you know what actually is effective for you and effective in the field that you're in, that sort of thing. You can specialize down the road, but start out with that broad idea first. So for me, the thing that probably encapsulates it best is that band sort of situation. Like if you are in a band, there are a lot of things that you have to get used to, and or just be okay with, because some of them are not great things, but they do help in the end. And a lot of it is that interpersonal interaction. You have to be able to deal with a bunch of disparate personalities, and still manage to come out with some sort of end product that you're all proud of. And that's hard because not everybody has the same taste in music. Not everybody has the same vision for where they want to go. So you have to compromise. You have to communicate and figure out how it is that you're actually going to put this whole thing together. And then if you're actually going to play, which I highly recommend for musicians in general, just at playing out. I know that right now we're kind of we've put a lot of playing on hold with the pandemic and everything. But now that things are coming back open, there's the business side of it right there, because you've got to be able to talk to people who book for venues. You got to be able to talk to owners who might or might not be so willing to pay for musicians in general. Might not be willing to part with the money uh, once the performance has been done. That sort of thing. There's just there are things that you have to sort of be a little bit, you have to be on top of them. You have to be a little cutthroat about them, because yeah, I think a lot of people sort of undervalue musicians in terms of just that, like what people tend to pay us when we perform, in smaller places, smaller venues. They show us basically how much they value us, and it's not usually a whole lot. But you've got to have those experiences so that you can uh, keep things organized and keep things moving forward. So playing out would be probably the number one thing, for all musicians. And I know that that's a weird thing for me particularly to say, because I am such an introvert in my normal life that I'm not the usual, hey, look at me, hey, look at me, I'm on stage kind of person. And honestly, now that my playing days are over, which they most likely very much are, um, I I kind of breathe a sigh of relief, but I'm still happy that I went through it, because it is part of this discipline that is required. And um, even just the practice aspect of it. You are there with this group of other people, and if y'all don't practice together, it doesn't matter how much you practice by yourself. If you don't practice together, it's not going to come together. It's not going to sound like a finished product. So there are different layers of the structure and the discipline of it. So
Have you ever
another.
thought about being a manager?
See, I do not want to deal with the owners and the bookers. No. Even though I've had to, I don't really want to, and especially not on behalf of someone else. I know that I could make it easier for someone, but you know, again, me being very much the introvert, I'm happier with my life being a little bit more reserved and held back at this point. So I think I'm going to stick with this. So no, thank you.
But with all of that in mind, what genre of music do you prefer to play or to sing?
I'm see, when I was with bands, I was always kind of the everything guy. Like I think I've already sort of established that. I play a lot of instruments, and I have the music theory that not all musicians actually have, because I studied it and that sort of thing. So I'm the one who can sort of arrange things and change keys and just generally things that need to be done in music, but are not necessarily common knowledge just from people who know how to play, but might not, understand the underpinnings. Um, so when I was doing things like that, it was never my thing, my endeavor. So I always played like hard rock for the most part, just because that's where people sort of found me, or those are the people that sort of found me, I should say. Um, but and I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong; it is a lot of fun playing real heavy stuff, But if I were left to my own devices, it'd be more of a singer songwritery sort of thing, just an acoustic guitar and a voice, and that's it. And I've certainly done that as well when I've sung, or when I've performed rather by myself, like in restaurants and things like that. It's always something like that, just an acoustic guitar and a voice, and those are always fun too, because again, you know not having to be in the middle of all of the interpersonal uh, things with a band. It's nice to just be able to, okay, I know these songs. I can just go out and sort of play them without a whole lot of the pressure behind it. Because if I mess up, number one, my mess ups are they're going to be pretty few and far between. I've done this again. I've done this for a while. I'm pretty practiced. Even if I do lose track of something, in the process, I can recover. And when I'm by myself, it's actually a little bit easier to recover to in my mind anyway, even though it seems very exposed. I can sort of play things off if I do make a mistake, and I'm human, so I'm gonna occasionally. But the the hard part of that compared to with a bunch of people though is just that I've got these hundreds of songs in the back of my mind somewhere, and if someone ever asked me to just play something like, and I'm not already in that headspace, my mind immediately goes blank. I've forgotten everything that I've ever learned ever. And so like if I just get that sort of open-ended request, yeah, I'm done for. If they ask for a specific song, I can probably help them out though. So
Right,
anyway,
right, right.
that was just sorry, that was just off a quick association there.
My wife and I notice you're very disciplined with your time and you're very structured with your time. What calendar tools do you use, and do you have any time management tips for people who run virtual classrooms?
So as for calendar, I just make sure that it's usable for me. It doesn't it the format doesn't really matter as far as I'm concerned. But I use mostly just the Google Calendar, but I color code everything. So I can just see at a glance when I've got a lesson coming up, and I do in-person lessons as well as online. And so I need to know if I need to go somewhere, obviously, as opposed to just being ready here. So just little things like that where I can just sort of see it at a glance, and of course it's handy being the Google Calendar because I can carry it around with me, and it's always kind of the same, and I can just look at it at a glance and not have to study over it or anything. So that's the number one thing. As far as like time management within the classes themselves, though, again, I've been doing this for a while, so that's the main thing. Is I kind of know the pacing based on experience. But then also, I'm in no rush, and I really want to emphasize that to someone who is starting with music, or somewhere deeper into it than that. But progress is not going to be instant, and it just takes consistency. So I'm going to, I mean, you're probably, if you're hearing the lessons, while they're going on, you're going to hear me say the same sorts of things over and over again because, repetition definitely helps with retention. And so I'm going to say the same phrases a lot. And that's that whole broad foundation for your daughters. I want them to sort of have the same vocabulary as I do, so that we can all talk about this, and eventually we can have this shorthand where we don't have to uh, explain everything ad nauseum. We know, and we can make those changes quickly and move on. So that's really handy for me, is establishing the vocabulary. So time management. Um, I'm not looking at the clock or anything like that. I don't have a timer or anything like that. It's just I know that I don't want to overfill the lesson with a bunch of stuff. That's the main thing. So I will ahead of time. I'll have one or two things that I want to focus on for that lesson, and make sure we hit those. If there are any questions, though, I love questions. I always want to make time for questions. And then if there's anything else, I've got the background to just throw anything else, out that is sort of associated with the things that we've already looked at. But those main two things, that's the biggest part, because I do have hour lessons and half-hour lessons, and so with the half-hour lessons, you really kind of have to, get straight to it a little bit. So that's
Cool,
about it.
cool. Now, Malcolm Gladwell has a thought that he put out there that it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at any craft.
Mhm.
For someone who spent a great deal of time teaching others and also becoming a master yourself at something, what are your thoughts on that?
So I do think it's awfully specific, you know? I think it's probably going to vary a little bit more than, you know, you hit the 10,000 hour mark and boom, you're an expert, you know? But it does take time. Absolutely, it does take just, you know, time spent. And I absolutely can attest to um, you know, needing those repetitions along the way to make things as effortless as you can. And that's one of the things that I really preach to my vocal students, especially, is that if it feels like you're forcing it, like you're pushing, you know, kind of a lot, um, you're actually getting in your own way. You know, I want it to feel more effortless so that you can know that number one, you're not doing harm to your vocal cords. You know, I want you to be able to sing for the rest of your life. So if you're just constantly feeling tight and pushed and all of those things, you know, that's a possibility. You know, you could be damaging your vocal cords with that. But if you are pretty relaxed and open and just generally things feel like they're always in a sweet spot kind of thing, well, that's a good sign, you know? So, so anyway, get to the point where you can play whatever that the instrument may be. Get to the point where you can play in that effortless fashion, you know? And yes, it'll take a while. The 10,000 hours is, you know, it's at least that for most people. Some people, they do have that head start natural talent that, you know, might make it a little bit shorter than that, uh but yeah, I think it's a good thing to shoot for sure. But don't don't get too focused on that number, because it can be intimidating, especially when you're starting out. If you've ever divided 10,000 hours into, you know, however many days or years you want to spend on, you know, whatever endeavor, it's intimidating. It's a lot of time, you know. You really have to, to me anyway, you have to break it down into smaller chunks and you know, spread it out over a longer time to not fall into that trap of just being so specialized, you know, because yes, you can do this for 8 hours a day, and I'm sure a lot of parents would love for their kids to practice whatever that they're trying to be really good at for 8 hours a day. But the reality is that the person that does that, is only that thing at that point.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not trying to get people to be so laser focused rather, that they can't you know, they can't do anything else in their life. So you know, it's still a balancing act as far as that goes, as far as I'm concerned.
Now we need to hear your voice on that because specialization of skills is being focused on so much in our society that, as an example, there are certain athletes who are their Achilles heels are blowing out, earlier than it used to blow out because of
Yep.
our society's specialization of skills focus. And just to coincide with something you said earlier, there's a guy who has an interesting theory, and I don't agree with everything this guy puts out for our audience members, but there's an artist named Scott Adams where he has a book on how to lose big and fail at everything and still be a success or something to that degree. And he basically said something similar to what you said. That the reason why he became the writer of the Dilbert cartoon and became so rich and famous is that he was a funny guy, but he wasn't the funniest. He was a business guy, but he was not the greatest business person. He could draw, but he wasn't the greatest artist. But those overlapping skills, putting funny, business, and also drawing, he put all those three together and became, he's worth $60 million. So those overlapping skills can go a long, long way. So I just wanted to put that out to our audience because you mentioned about specialization of skills and being able to do more than one thing and working on those various tasks. Now, Chad, what book do you recommend that has helped you the most on your life journey?
Uh, you know, I like the Tim Ferriss's kind of whole line of things, the 4 hour, you know, body work week, all of those, you know, types of things. I think they have a lot of good to offer. Again, like you though, with Scott Adams, I'm not saying that everything he does is magic or anything like that, but I think there's a lot to be taken from that, just as far as streamlining and being efficient with your time, and I'm certainly uh, I feel like I'm coming into it more at this age, certainly, because when you're younger, you always feel like you have all the time in the world and nothing is so pressing. But now, obviously, I can see that yeah, time is our limited resource. So I am trying to be, or I like to think again that I've succeeded in being far more efficient in just a lot of the things that I do, just by being mindful about it. And I do think that that's important to think about where you're going, rather than just kind of always being in the moment. But again, it's a hard thing to say, you know, uh, think ahead, think ahead, think ahead, and then you do lose those moments. So I definitely am. Again, I'm trying to be a little bit of a lot of things. I love that I can live in the moment and just enjoy what's going on right now. But yeah, I don't want to necessarily waste time either, so it's a little of both, and I'm always struggling with that path, I think. But I'm feeling better. I'm certainly feeling better about that at this point.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, I found out about Scott Adams through listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast. That's where I first ran
Oh,
into
okay.
Scott Adams, by the way. So yeah, we're big. I'm
Oh,
a
there
big
you go.
fan
And
of Tim Ferriss as well. If this podcast would just grow to the Tim Ferriss level podcast, I would love it. I would love it. All right, I could afford
yeah,
8 hour music lessons at that time.
there you go.
Now, at becoming. Oh well, also Tim Ferriss moved. He moved down to your way. He's down in Austin now. So I don't know if you knew that.
That's right. A lot of people are moving to Austin, so yeah.
Yeah, a lot of podcasters: Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, and everyone else. Now, at Becoming Disciplined, we examine discipline or organization in the following areas: spirituality, mental discipline, physical discipline, emotional intelligence, financial discipline, time management, and home and data organization. Now, which of these do you consider your strongest points, and which could use some work? And if you do have an area that could use some work, what is your plans in 2021 to change in that particular area?
Okay, so do I really have to just choose one? Because I remember reading this, like that list, and I saw kind of the life progression in it. You were asking about how my musical life progressed. Well, I saw the just general life progression in that list because, okay, I think naturally, um, my um, my mental discipline is probably my greatest asset. Like that is something that I didn't really have to work on very much. That's just a blessing. That's just kind of who I am, or a big part of who I am. So that's kind of a starting point, right? But then, I mean, the emotional intelligence aspect. I think a lot like music, people underestimate the ability to learn anything to do with that as well, because I know that there are people who naturally develop, for instance, empathy. Um, but not everybody has empathy or naturally will develop it. But you know what? I truly believe that you can, just want to develop empathy. Just see that it is a useful and humanizing um, idea, and you can just kind of practice your way into being a more empathic individual. So there's there's still work that can be done even on things that you aren't naturally gifted on, and I do think that my emotional intelligence in general is something that I have worked on. Just being more observant of people, um, and being more empathic. That's definitely something that I put a priority on at some point. Uh, then there's um, the time management, which again goes to that idea of being efficient with my time and all of that, and that's developed over the years as well. The financial discipline I've mentioned before was a little bit because of not a great example. Not that she's gone bankrupt and or anything like that. It's just she didn't realize she had as much money as she did when she was even when she was a single mom raising me, so the money just sort of went away. It just sort of got spent without really too much thought about it. And so I definitely have had more financial discipline because of that. And then there's the physical discipline, and here's where probably the most recent example for me, because you were talking about Achilles injuries in athletes. Well, I got the dreaded ACL tear myself in my left knee, and so um, which is a whole big dramatic story that I won't necessarily get into, but um, it did force me for the last 2.5 years now, basically to prioritize that physical uh, aspect, because for the first year after the injury, my primary goal was to get back to where I was, better even. And so I prioritized that in such a way that I just made sure that I did my workout first thing in the morning. Like I was doing 6 workouts a week, every six mornings a week. I would work out and do something with my knee, and that grew from there as far as what I worked, because it wasn't it turned into more than just trying to rehab my knee, but also just enjoying it for its own sake. Um, but I mean, it's been 2.5 years, and I'll tell you what, the willpower can fade, but habit, that sticks with you. So for the past 2.5 years, 6 mornings a week working out, that's my habit now. Like that's the first thing that I do when I get up is I go down to the garage and I work out. So that's just the latest example. But like I say, it's been one after another, and so I don't know if I can choose just one, but the physical is the latest one. If that finally answers it anyway.
Sure, sure. No, no, no. That is great. That is great. Now, you mentioned earlier, you said my playing days were over. Now, or something close to that. And but the Rolling
Mm.
Stones, they're out there, 70, 80 years old, still singing away. Is it just were you tired of the road, or you wanted something more stable, or do you believe that there's a time limit, because there's some who have defied that time limit. So what are your thoughts on that?
There's definitely no time limit. No, no, you're absolutely right. If you're, if you love it, and just being on the road is that important. I mean, absolutely, you can keep doing that. And um, for me, I mean, obviously the knee had an impact. Just number one, I couldn't lug my gear around for a while, so I was not playing before the pandemic shut everything down. And then the pandemic, extended my sabbatical away from performing. And now, no, it's really just it's my choice to stop playing at this point. I could go back to it and everything, but yeah, I realized that because I am more of an introvert, and I don't need to be on stage. Like there have definitely been people that I've played with who they have that personality where they want the attention, and that does feel like it's missing, like something's missing when they don't get to perform. But it's not that way for me. As long as I have, a friend or two that I can occasionally play for, and they actually want to hear me. Hey, I'm happy with that. It doesn't have to be in front of hundreds or thousands of people. It just um, I enjoy those more intimate sort of sort of performances for people that I know anyway. So I will be okay with just that. But yeah, I've figured out, oh, after the knee injury and then the pandemic, that I like this. I like not having to um, go out and sort of have that anxiety of performing, uh, just just getting up in front of a bunch of people again, and knowing that I put in the time. Don't get me wrong. I Practice is what makes getting up on stage you know fun, because if you practice enough, then you get up there and you just know that it's going to be there. Then you can sort of pick your head up. You don't have to just put your head down and stare at what you're doing the whole time. You can just sort of pick your head up, look out on the crowd, enjoy yourself up on stage, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's absolutely anxiety on my part, because I want to do an excellent job, and there's always a lot going on in my mind as far as all of the different things that I have to do. Again, being the sort of everything guy in most of the bands that I've been in. So um, anyway, no, there is no time limit. I have imposed this upon myself, and it's not necessarily that I've closed the door forever. It's just that I'm liking this right now, and so I'm definitely going to stay away from performing for the time being. That's all. But that's just me. And again, I know I'm giving advice to musicians that they should play, and then not playing myself. But I promise, I've done plenty of it. I've done plenty of playing. So
Now, Chad, I'll just give you this prediction. Even though you're not the type of guy who is seeking it, I just have a feeling. I just have this feeling that I don't know whether it'll be in management or in music itself. I have a feeling the uh, things are going to shift towards you in this next decade. Because, and here's my point. Let me just make this point with you: is that society always gravitates to the opposite. We go in one direction for years and years and years,
exactly,
and then
yeah,
we go into the other direction. So, in a world filled with self promotion and a world filled with people not trying to be mean to them, but the Kardashians, and the world filled with people who focus on specialization of skills, I think there's going to be a market or a voice for people like yourself who says, "Hey, broaden your horizons, and also don't look at me. Look at the work." So I definitely think that there's going to be a market for people who speak like you and think like you and move like you. And we'll just not saying that's a prophecy. That's more of a prediction. All right.
appreciate it.
All right. Well, Chad, we can't thank you enough for coming on. You didn't have to do this. You didn't need to do this. We truly appreciate it. You have the last word. And just want to let you know what your audience is. I call my audience the Get Better Club. We're very small right now, but they're just people from around age 30 to age 55 who are just trying to get better. They're trying to be a better version of themselves. So, do you have any closing thoughts for the Get Better Club of how they can become better versions of themselves in music, in singing, or just in life?
Absolutely. And again, the my latest one, the physical discipline. Just working out. Like I'm 44 years old. I have never been in better shape, because and it was out of necessity. I'm not gonna lie. It's not like I chose it necessarily, and I was never a workout guy before this. But again, I have come to really enjoy it for its own sake, for the process. And I'll tell you what, progress is not a straight line, in anything. You know, you're not going to just get 5 pounds more every single time you put something on the bar. Some days you're not going to feel your best, and the weight is going to show that. But it still adds up. If you zoom out and you look at the macro focus, you'll see just how much progress that you've made, and that applies to so many things. So if you have the the habit built up, just the habit of putting some time in, every day or close to every day, then you're going to see that progress. And so with music, I start kids off, for instance, doing 5 minutes at a time. And I feel bad because their tiny fingers hurt by, pressing down on the guitar strings and everything. So 5 minutes at a time is just so that they can, not kill their fingers. But I say 5 minutes and then take a break and come back and do 5 minutes more. Take a break, come back and do 5 minutes more. If you do that several times a day, you're still getting, however much your total amount of time that you're looking for is, but you're not killing your fingers. So if you do that for for music, just a little bit of time, and you start to realize that you're going to build up your tolerance. There was a time when I was performing 5 days a week, 3 hours at a time, and I guarantee you, you do not just jump into that. If you do, you're going to burn out spectacularly and quickly. But if you build up to it, then that 3 hours a day doesn't feel like a whole lot. So just do things, be consistent at how you or what you do, and um, the progress will come, and you'll be able to see it on the other side. And especially if you make note of your progress, if it's physical, like take pictures of what you look like so you can see the transformation. Make a log of the things that you lift so that you can see that you're lifting 50 pounds more than you were 6 months ago. Just try to keep some sort of record. And by the way, when it comes to music, if you are writing something, um, you think it's the best thing you've ever written, and you're definitely going to remember it tomorrow. You're not going to remember it tomorrow. Record it right now. Don't wait. Just put it down right now. That'll do.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Chad. Everything that Chad just said is all in the books. It's all in the books of all of the people who study these things. So I just wanted to just give him extra. I wanted to give confirmation or co-signing or whatever it's called. You can read it in all of the books about habit formation and how we truly change. It's as Coach John Wooden said. Uh, Yard by yard is hard, but inch by inch is a cinch. So slow and steady wins the race. Thank you again, Chad. We can't thank you enough. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for being such an awesome teacher to my daughters.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And believe me, I was not expecting to be invited on something like this at all. And it was definitely a scary thought for me. But at the same time, hopefully, I have given a little bit different perspective, just from where I'm coming from, just the music aspect and that sort of thing. Because I know some of your other guests have been very business oriented, or spirituality and faith oriented, and I want to again, I want to round things out a little bit.
That's awesome. Oh, that's awesome. And yes, you did do that. Thank